Hello everyone, this is Sebastian and welcome to the 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast here on KWDC 93.5 LPFM Delta College Radio. Welcome to what may be the final episode of the Storytelling Podcast here on 93.5 KWDC. It's been an incredible journey since this series first began back in October 2025. So much has happened and we've explored so many different aspects of storytelling together. To take a quick look back at the path we've shared, we kicked things off with our very first episode on how to write characters. From there, we built a foundation on the basics of how to world build, and as 2025 came to a close, we explored how to continue a story and keep it alive. When we returned in February of this year, we came back strong back-to-back episodes on what makes a story good and what makes a story bad. We then stepped into the world of gaming to understand how to tell a story through a video game before shifting into modern storytelling trends with how to retell, reimagine, or reboot a story. And most recently, over the past 2 weeks, I've had the chance to sit down with a series of guests to ask one of the most important questions of all of storytelling: what does a story mean to you? And now we've arrived at our 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast. Today we're taking on one of the most important challenges in all of storytelling, the final step that can define everything that came before it: how to end a story satisfyingly. From the very beginning, I knew that when the time came to bring this podcast series to a close, this would be the topic we would end on. And now, after everything we've explored together, I'm ready to answer the question we've been building toward: how do you, as a writer, truly end a story in a satisfying way? There's a lot to dive into, so sit back, relax, and join me in one final dive into the world of storytelling. The Storytelling Podcast, Episode 9, How to End a Story Satisfyingly. To end a story in a truly satisfying way, you have to deliver on the promises that you made from the very beginning, bringing your characters full circle, resolving the central conflict in a way that feels earned, and stay true to the themes that shaped your journey. A strong ending doesn't just tie up things neatly, it leaves an impact, giving the audience a sense of closure while still allowing the story to linger in their minds. Whether it's a triumphant resolution, a bittersweet farewell, or even an open-ended conclusion, what matters most is that it feels authentic to the story you set out to tell, because in the end, a great conclusion doesn't just finish a story, it defines it. The first thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is you want to resolve the central conflict. The main problem driving your story needs a clear and meaningful resolution, whether it's a victory, a loss, or something in between. That resolution should feel natural and earned, reflecting the choices your characters made and the journey they went through to even get there. So some things to keep in mind. You want to identify the central conflict early so that the audience understands what's at stake throughout the entire story. You want to continue to build tension consistently so the resolution feels like a payoff, not an afterthought. You're going to want to ensure character decisions directly influence how the conflict is resolved. I would say to avoid convenient or random solutions that don't align with the story's established logic. You're going to want to allow consequences to remain visible in the outcome, even if there is a victory that comes from it. Make sure that the ending reflects the emotional and thematic journey, not just the plot mechanics. And then the last thing that I'll say is give the resolution enough weight so it feels like a true culmination of everything that came before it. To give you some examples, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the Guardians finally defeat the High Evolutionary, resolving the central conflict while also saving Rocket and countless lives, making the victory deeply personal and earned. In Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the destruction of the One Ring resolves the core conflict against Sauron, culminating in a journey defined by sacrifice, perseverance, and unity. And then the last example that I can give you is in the show Breaking Bad. Walter White's story resolves as he confronts the consequences of his empire, tying the central conflict between his ambition and morality to a definitive end. With the central conflict finally brought to the meaningful close, we can now shift our focus to how that resolution shapes the people at the heart of the story, which is our characters. Moving on into the second thing that I'll be discussing today, you want to complete the character arcs. Your characters should feel like they've grown, changed, or learned something by the end of the journey. That transformation should be clearly reflected in their actions, decisions, or perspective, which would show the audience how the story has shaped who they've become. Some things you're going to want to keep in mind. You want to establish the character's starting point so that their growth is clearly measurable by the end of the story. You want to show gradual change through key moments rather than only revealing it in the final scene. You want to let their decisions in the climax reflect what they've learned throughout the story. I would suggest to use dialogue and behavior to highlight how their perspectives have shifted. You also want to contrast earlier actions with final actions to emphasize development. And then the last thing that I'll include is you want to make their growth meaningful to the overall story, not just personal change in isolation, but in general to the entire plot. For some examples that I can give, in Avengers Endgame, Tony Stark completes his character arc by sacrificing himself, proving he has fully transformed into a selfless hero. In Red Dead Redemption 2, Arthur Morgan's journey concludes with redemption as his final actions reflect the man he chose to become. And then the last example that I'll give is in the show Better Call Saul, Jimmy fully embraces accountability, completing his transformation by finally accepting responsibility for his actions. Now, as we see how the conflict wraps up, it naturally leads us into the next essential piece of storytelling, making sure those journeys are reflected in meaningful character growth. Moving on to the third thing that I'm going to talk about in this podcast episode, you have to have deliver on setup and payoff. Any major hints, promises, or plot points introduced earlier should come full circle in a way that feels intentional. When those setups are paid off effectively, it gives the audience a sense of cohesion and makes the story feel carefully crafted rather than coincidental. So things you're going to want to keep in mind, deliver on setup and payoff. Keep track of all major steps introduced earlier in the story so nothing important is forgotten. You're going to want to plant hints that feel natural in the moment but gain meaning later on in the story. You're going to want to ensure payoff directly connects back to something previously established in the story. I would suggest to avoid introducing new solutions at the end that were never hinted at before. You kind of want to stick with what was already established. You're going to want to pay off emotional steps as well as plot-based ones for stronger impact. I would say to make connections between early and late story events so that it feels deliberate and it feels planned. And then the last thing that I'll touch upon for this little part is reinforce the idea that everything in the story had purpose and make sure that it is not done as a coincidence. For some examples that I can give you about deliver on setup and payoff, in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, the Horcrux, Elder Wand, and Snape's memories all pay off, tying together years of setup into one cohesive conclusion. In Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Luke's belief in Vader pays off when Anakin Skywalker ultimately turns against the Emperor, fulfilling a long-established theme and foreshadowing. And in the movie The Usual Suspects, it's revealed that Kaiser pays off the subtle clues scattered throughout the story, recontextualizing everything that came before it. Now, once we understand how characters evolve through resolution, the next step is to examine how earlier setup and details are brought back in satisfying or intentional ways. Speaking upon that, the fourth thing that you're going to want to do is stay true to the theme. The ending should reinforce the message or idea your story has been exploring all along. It should bring that theme into clear focus, leaving the audience with deeper understanding of what the story was truly about. Some things you're going to want to keep in mind to stay true to the theme. You have to clearly identify the central theme early so it can be consistently developed throughout the entire story that you're looking to write. You're going to want to ensure key events and character choices reflect and support that theme that you've chosen for your story. Use the final moments of the story to bring the theme into sharp focus. I would suggest, though, to avoid introducing new themes at the end that distract from the main message. I would say to let the resolution of the plot naturally highlight the story's underlying idea. Use symbolism, dialogue, or consequences to reinforce the theme in a memorable way. And the last thing that I'll say is leave the audience with a clear emotional or intellectual takeaway tied to the story's core meaning. For some examples that I can give, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the ending reinforces the theme of found family and healing as each Guardian moves forward while honoring their bond. In the Harry Potter series, love and sacrifice remain central, especially in Harry's willingness to face death to protect others. And then the last example I can give is in Cobra Kai Season 6, the conclusion emphasizes balance, growth, and breaking cycles of rivalry, that being Johnny and LaRusso, staying true to the franchise's evolving message. After exploring how all of those narrative threads connect and pay off, we can now turn towards ensuring the story's deeper message remains consistent and clear all the way through. The fifth thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create an emotional impact. Whether it's joy, sadness, shock, or reflection, the audience should feel something that sticks with them. That emotional impact is what turns a simple conclusion into a memorable ending, giving the story lasting weight beyond its final moment. So, things to keep in mind. I would say to decide early on what emotional tone you want the ending to leave with the audience, just so you know how you're going to write your story. Build emotional stakes throughout the story so that the final impact feels earned, and I would say to use character outcomes to trigger genuine emotional responses, not just plot twists or plot conveniences. Allow the audience time to sit with the emotion instead of rushing past the ending. I would say to balance resolution with emotional resonance to make a moment more powerful. I do recommend to use dialogue, or even silence effectively to heighten emotional weight. And then the last thing that I'll include is aim for an ending that lingers in the audience's mind long after the story is over. For some examples that I can give you, in Avengers Endgame, the aftermath of Tony Stark's sacrifice delivers a deeply emotional farewell that resonates across the entire MCU. I mean, we get this in the form of basically from the funeral scene to everything else that comes after it. In Red Dead Redemption 2, Arthur Morgan's final moments, especially with High Honor, leave a lasting emotional weight tied to his redemption. And then in Transformers Dark of the Moon, the destruction of Chicago and the intense final battle create a heavy, high-stakes emotional climax for the war that is taking place on Earth between the Decepticons and the Autobots. Now, I do know that this wasn't the end, but when this did come out in 2011, this was the end of that trilogy, so this could have been the climax right here. Now, with the theme firmly grounded in place, the next focus becomes the emotional weight of the ending and how it leaves the lasting impact on the audience. Now for the sixth thing that I'm going to be talking about. Avoid unnecessary loose ends. Tie up important story threads so that the audience isn't left confused or unsatisfied. While not every minor detail needs closure, the key elements of the narrative should be addressed clearly enough that the ending feels complete and intentional. A few things to keep in mind for this. Identify which story threads are essential to the main plot and prioritize resolving those first. Provide clear answers to major questions that the audience has been following throughout the story. Allow minor or background details to remain unresolved if they don't affect the core narrative. I do recommend to avoid leaving critical plot points hanging without purpose or any payoff. Ensure that the ending feels structured rather than abrupt or unfinished. You're going to want to balance clarity with mystery so that the story feels complete but not overly explained. And the last thing that I'll say is make the final resolution feel intentional, giving the audience confidence in how the story can conclude. For examples that I can give you, in the show Breaking Bad, the finale resolves Walter White's story, Jesse's escape, and the fate of his entire empire with clear, deliberate closure. In Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, multiple endings tie up character journeys from Aragorn's coronation to Frodo's departure. Then the final example that I can give you is in Five Nights at Freddy's, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. The fire and Henry's speech brings a closure to a long-running animatronic storyline that was taking place throughout the course of the first 4 years of Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, once that emotional resonance is established, we can finally look at how all of these elements come together to create an ending that feels complete, intentional, and fully earned. Now for the seventh and final thing that I'll be touching upon, making the ending feel earned. The conclusion should feel like a natural result of everything that's come before it, not rushed or forced. It should grow organically out of the story's events and character choices, giving the audience a sense that the ending was always the inevitable outcome from the journey's beginning. Some things to keep in mind. Build the ending directly from the decisions and consequences established earlier in the story. I would suggest to avoid introducing last-minute solutions or twists that don't fit the story's established logic. This is something that happens with a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies. Let the character choices naturally lead to the final outcome, reinforcing cause and effect. Maintain consistent tone and pacing so that the ending doesn't feel disconnected from what came before. I would say to ensure that the climax feels like the peak of everything that has been building, not a sudden shift in direction. Use earlier setups and conflicts to naturally shape how the story resolves. And the last thing that I'll say is give the audience the impression that in the end it was always unfolding towards this point. Even if they didn't see it at first, they will see it by the ending. For some examples that I can give, in Avengers Endgame, the final victory and sacrifices feel earned through years of build-up across all of the MCU films that people had religiously followed up until that point. In the TV show Better Call Saul, Jimmy's final decision to confess is a natural culmination of his long internal struggle. And then for the video game Minecraft, defeating the Ender Dragon and reading the end poem feels earned as the result of exploration, survival, and player-driven progress. In the end, crafting a satisfying conclusion comes down to bringing all the essential pieces of storytelling together in one single harmony. You need to resolve the central conflict in a way that feels natural and earned, while also ensuring your characters complete meaningful arcs that reflect their growth throughout the journey. At the same time, strong endings deliver on earlier setups and payoffs, reinforcing the sense that everything in the story was intentional. They stay true to the story's core theme, giving the narrative a clear and unified message, while also creating an emotional impact that resolves long after the story ends. A well-crafted ending avoids unnecessary loose ends, making sure that the audience isn't left confused or unsatisfied, and ultimately feels like a natural and inevitable result of everything that came before it. When all of these elements come together, the result is an ending that doesn't just finish a story, it defines it. Of course, it wouldn't feel right to close out this final episode without welcoming a few guests onto the episode. So with that in mind, let's get ready for the final guest segments of the series. But before we move any further, thank you for joining us on the 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast on how to end a story satisfyingly here on Delta College. We're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back here on 93.5 KWDC.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Hey guys, hope you had a good little break there. Now let's continue with the 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast on how to end a story satisfyingly here on Delta College. Let's welcome our first guest to this episode of the Storytelling Podcast. For our first guest, we're welcoming back a familiar voice to the Storytelling Podcast. He's a fellow student in the digital media department who consistently gives his full effort in everything he takes on, from developing ideas on paper to bringing them to life on the screen, including his role as Doubt in the digital media skit Si se puede o no. He's shown incredible growth throughout the semester and his time in the digital media department. From Star Wars to Spider-Man to Blade Runner, he has had some interesting topics to discuss here on the Storytelling Podcast, and he's here for our final episode. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our first guest of the Storytelling Podcast, episode 9. Returning for one last episode, we have Ian.
Hello, this is Ian here for the final episode of the Storytelling Podcast. We've got a couple topics that we wanted to talk about for this episode, including a lot of stories that we've talked about previously. Yeah, touching back on Spider-Man 3, a little bit of Blade Runner, a little bit of Star Wars, and also talking about Scott Pilgrim a little bit.
Damn, and in a way, this is kind of looking back on the last two episodes you were on, because everything that was included in those we're going to be touching upon here, but just the endings, though.
Yeah, we're talking about how to satisfyingly end a story, maybe not so satisfyingly in some cases.
Yeah.
One of the main topics that I wanted to talk about real quick was studio influence on how a story can be told. Oftentimes I feel like the ending is the part that's attacked the most by studio executives, but oftentimes studio executives will take a look at a story and they'll say, this isn't exactly the story that we want to tell. It's not going to line the pockets of our stockholders and whatnot. So they'll have to have the director or the writer make some changes, which sometimes interferes with the story that a storyteller may want to tell.
There's no better example of like seeing changed endings nowadays than like, for example, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everything like post the Endgame has all had their endings changed to some degree.
Yeah, and it's a very common thing with superhero movies for the studios to interfere based on what fans want or what they think fans want or what they think stockholders want to see in a big film like this.
The one superhero film that we were going to touch upon as to like the one that had studio interference was Spider-Man 3.
This film was changed in many significant ways from its original vision. Most often talked about online and whatnot is how Venom wasn't originally even planned to be in the film at all. Sam Raimi overall wasn't super interested in telling a story with this character, but because the rabid fan demand was loud and clear, Sony and the producers really wanted to include him, and overall in the end Sam Raimi was not really happy with having to include him in the film.
Or really too happy with the film that he came out with.
Yeah.
I mean, he did his best, but let's talk about the actual changes that for this installment of the Spider-Man series, because this was supposed to be like, well, I wouldn't say the big conclusion, but like with it being the third film, a lot of people expected it to be the conclusion, and I mean, it did become the conclusion.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to talk about because there were certainly plans for them to have a fourth Spider-Man film and continue the story on from there, but they didn't end up having to do that. So Spider-Man 3 sort of became the default ending to the trilogy, whether or not that was the original intention or not.
Yeah.
And I think actually, it works pretty well. The ending of Spider-Man 3 is a satisfying ending. It does sort of feel like the ending to a trilogy, even if it's not planned to be that. I think it serves its purpose as an ending and a conclusion, even if it's not as deep.
I mean, with what we were apparently going to get in Spider-Man 4, we were supposed to get Bruce Willis as the Vulture, and then I want to say Anne Hathaway was going to be Black Cat, which, wow, that was kind of wild, because she ended up playing Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises. So she could have literally have played both versions of a cat in two universes, but I want to say we were also going to have the Lizard in there, played by the guy who played as Kirk Connors, but because of the studio interference, Sam Raimi eventually just dipped out of the project.
Yeah, and with that, the trilogy as it is now, that's sort of what it became, a trilogy rather than a quadrilogy, and Spider-Man 3 became the ending. I think with its themes sort of touching on how Harry and Peter sort of reconnect in that final moment, I think it does have sort of elements of a conclusion to this trilogy, like wrapping up some of those ends that had been there since the beginning.
Especially with like the friendship of Harry and then Peter, and then even MJ and Peter, because for the longest time it's like will they, won't they, and then you finally get to the ending of this film. It's like, okay, yeah, they'll figure it out because they only really have each other now.
Also, the ending of this film was also a little bit changed. Originally, it was supposed to have a more violent interaction with Venom. Yeah. With the original, like he sort of peels back the Venom symbiote face and sees
Eddie.
Yeah, sees Eddie's corpse inside of the Venom suit, and then it closes up and he sees that Venom is just controlling his dead body.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of poles fall on them. He uses them to kill Venom, like violently stabbing him in multiple places, impaling him.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a crazy ending.
Whether or not he would have used the pumpkin bomb, that part I don't know. But yeah, this was going to be a lot darker than it ended up being.
Yeah, there are animatics, and I believe this even showed up in the video game and elements of it in the novelization. But yeah, they definitely changed the ending quite a bit for the final film.
But with that said, for the film that we did got, in a way, like, if you look at it through a certain lens, I feel like it still could be satisfying.
Certainly, yeah. With the way they sort of wrapped up the ending, even if it wasn't intended to be the final act of Spider-Man, it does have a lot of satisfying elements to it, with, as I said, them making up at the end and whatnot.
Yeah, and then, I mean, even the final battle where it's like, what happens with Venom, like, that one feels earned because essentially what you're watching is this guy just lost his best friend to Venom. So him taking Venom out is like, it's kind of satisfying to watch.
Yeah.
And then even with the Sandman character, you could tell throughout the entire film, he's not so much a villain. He's just kind of like this misunderstood person that's just been misguided and has had bad luck. But when he like finally has that scene with Peter at the end, Peter's like, yeah, I forgive you, which is, you know, in a way, it's satisfying.
Yeah, that wraps up the whole revenge arc, because throughout the entire trilogy, he's wanting to get revenge on whoever was responsible for Uncle Ben's death, and he does get his revenge on who he thinks is responsible, really, in the first film, and that's sort of like an element you see as darkness.
I mean, was this an unnecessary retcon? A little, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, it works in the end to serve a satisfying conclusion.
Now, moving on to something that was a satisfying conclusion to many people, even back in the 80s, because I know that there are a handful of people that defend this film regardless of the choices that it decided to make for the third one. We have Star Wars Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and this is another case where sort of was an ending at the time, but it's not really the ending anymore now that we had two more Star Wars endings with the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy.
Well, I mean, technically, this could still be the ending to the prequels, too, because this is supposed to be after that.
Yes, indeed. This was originally supposed to be the ending of George Lucas's Star Wars storytelling. And I think it has a very satisfying ending in certain ways. And I think the perception of this film as sort of lesser nowadays is sort of strange. I think there are a lot of elements of this film that are just classic Star Wars. I can't really imagine Star Wars without the fight between, you know, Vader and Luke at the end, the fight where the Emperor is, you know, electrocuting Luke. Although now that we have the 2011 special edition with Darth Vader saying no, kind of does take away from the ending a little bit, maybe.
But I said this in the first podcast episode you were in, the bad part of storytelling. Specifically with this one, Return of the Jedi, I see it as just the default Star Wars film. And I have since rewatched this film just to get an idea of it, and it's like, no, yeah, it's still the default Star Wars film to me, but is it a good time? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of elements about this film where you can tell that George Lucas was sort of going for the marketing. You know, you sort of see like sort of certain ships or certain characters, and you're like, that would make a great toy. And I'm sure George Lucas thought so as well when he was making it. I mean, there's like a lot of documentary footage of him like signing deals and stuff while they're working on the film. I think is really funny. Kind of goes to show what people say about this film, how it was you know, more of a marketing focused movie than the previous two installments.
Something that's funny about this film specifically, because I noticed this like in the beginning with like the whole Jabba the Hutt thing, you have like a normal dude in there that is just a crew member, which is something that's been like carried off in like a lot of Star Wars projects, including I want to say Attack of the Clones, where you just have like a random dude in there in the crowd, and it's like, damn, how does this happen, you know? But like, speaking on like how this was satisfying itself, it's like this one was actually structured to be the ending.
Yeah, you see Luke really confronting the whole villain of the series, not only just Vader, who you've seen, but also the Emperor, who you've sort of heard about. You saw the large hologram of him in Episode 5, which at the time in the 80s, that was not his final look, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in the 80s when we saw him in Empire Strikes Back for the first time, I want to say it was just a woman with like makeup on her.
Yeah, it was one of the studio heads' wives, I think, or whoever was working on the film, and then they superimposed gorilla eyes on her while she was also wearing some like pale makeup, so she has this weird alien look.
But I mean, for the third one at least, we ended up getting you know, Ian
McDiarmid as the Emperor, who would go on to play him in the prequel trilogy and in The Rise of Skywalker,
and for his entire life.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this serves as a great ending. You see the sort of talked about villain who you only see glimpses of. You see his downfall. You see Darth Vader.
What's it called? Was there a mention of him in New Hope or? No?
Yeah, they mentioned him one time when they say that the Senate had been dissolved. When Tarkin comes into the room and says that it'll no longer be a problem because the Emperor has just dissolved the Senate or whatever. And then in Empire Strikes Back, you hear a little bit more about him. You see the hologram of him. And then finally, in Return of the Jedi, you see him in the flesh. You see him carrying out his power of electrocuting Luke, which is pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
And then you see Darth Vader, the main villain of the series up to this point, sort of redeeming himself, turning back into Anakin Skywalker, defeating the Emperor. And his redemption was a major factor of
the story.
Yeah. And
And then his final moments with Luke, in a way, that's like satisfying too, because that Darth Vader ain't gonna make it out of this one. But like, I feel like back then people were like, "Oh, is he? They're probably gonna, kill off Vader." But I think the way they went about it was a much better way, because it shows like the human aspect of him, where it's like, he takes off the helmet and it's like, yeah, he needs that to live, but he's fine with it.
Yeah, you see his arc kind of come full circle as he's already dying, wants to look at Luke through his own eyes, as he says. And if you look back at Revenge of the Sith, when you sort of see through his eyes for that second, everything is kind of like red tinted and darkened and digital looking. So being able to see Luke without all that filter, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Now, moving on from this one, we have the Blade Runner film.
Yeah, this is another instance of studio interference. Originally, this film had a pretty dark ending with its 1982 work print version that was shown to test audiences. The original plan ending was supposed to be sort of ambiguous, not really reveal too much of what happens in the end when Deckard and Rachel are sort of fugitives on the run now. The studio did not like this original ending because they're like, that's not an ending. That's just, you didn't end the movie. We don't like the ambiguity. So they took some footage from The Shining, some unused footage from a helicopter scene in The Shining, I guess, that was used in the intro credits for The Shining. Yeah, they put that over some footage of him and Deckard and Rachel sitting in a car, like one of the flying cars, looking out at this beautiful valley, and you see them get away and live happily ever after, which, not necessarily a terrible ending, but it is very weird and kind of out of place with them using found
the way
footage.
that I would describe that, the way, or like at least the way that you described it, is they just wanted it to be safe.
Yes, you wanted to know that the characters are not, arrested or whatever. They made it out of there. They lived in some picturesque valley. And, if you look at what happens in Blade Runner 2049, this ending sort of works for that. I mean, they didn't go anywhere too crazy, beautiful, far away like what you see in the film, but they did go far away. They did sort of live happily ever after until, well, I'm not going to spoil what happens if you haven't seen the second film, because it's pretty crazy. But
even though it's been out since 2017.
if you want to watch it, you should have watched it by now. But I think this ending, overall, the original was not bad, or the original released version was not bad, but the original version that was intended by Ridley Scott was a pretty nice ending in its ambiguity, which is a major factor of the Blade Runner franchise.
Yeah. I don't know too much about Blade Runner. I do want to see the movies, but I just need to find the time for them. But jumping on from Blade Runner to the final topic that you want to discuss, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah, this is another film that sort of had not exactly studio interference, although they did have a say in it, but also the director of the film was not really sure which direction he wanted to take it in. There were two endings shot for this film, which one of them is available if you have like the DVD as a bonus feature, and they showed both versions to test audiences, one where he gets with Ramona and one where he gets with Knives Chow, which is very interesting to think about. Obviously, the conclusion for the books had not been written at the time, so they sort of had to make their own ending, but it's very weird that they even shot the ending with Knives Chow, I think, because I think that kind of negates the whole character development of Scott. Yeah, we ended up getting the Ramona ending because it makes a whole lot more sense. I don't know if, I think I read that the test audiences were kind of split on it, like there wasn't a major, push either way that liked the film better, but I think if they had actually released that film and people had talked about it for years, they would say that the ending of the movie was incredibly disappointing with Knives Chow, because that's like him completely regressing to who he was at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, with all of that, specifically, I feel like, maybe it could have been like, people could have been like surprised for the ending, where it's like, oh my god, it's a twist ending. But then as like time goes on, I could see them, eventually being like, you know what, no, that wasn't a good ending, we should have gotten the other one. But we did get the other one, which is the preferred of the two, if anything.
Yeah, and while it's not the same as the book ending, which is a lot more grand and a lot more, they wanted it to be a bigger finale for the book. I think the ending that they had in the original released version of the film is actually pretty good. It wraps up this film nicely for what it is.
Well, everyone, that's pretty much going to conclude Ian's segment for this final episode of the Storytelling Podcast. Thank you again for being a part of this, Ian. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on this episode and the previous episodes as well.
What makes a story bad, and then how to retell, reimagine, or reboot a story. There were all some really great talks. So we pretty much discussed what we spoke about in those ones, but in a way, we talked about the endings here.
Yeah, sort of come full circle.
Yeah, it did. Anyways, we're going to move on to our second and our final guest now, but before that...
Thank you for joining us on the 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast on how to end a story satisfyingly here on Delta College. We're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back here on 93.5 KWDC.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
We're not adults, so just be there and listen. I just want someone to yap to. And I just feel like I'll be fine if someone just hears me talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
You're doing a really good job. And I don't think I tell you that enough. And I know sometimes we get into it and it's just hard on both of us. But try to understand me more and I'll try to do the same.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
Hey guys, hope you had a good little break there. Now let's continue with the 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast on how to end a story satisfyingly here on Delta College. Now that we've heard from our first guest, it's time to move on and welcome our final guest of this episode of the Storytelling Podcast. For our final guest of the Storytelling Podcast, we have a standout student from the Digital Media Department. She lit up the airwaves as the host of KWDC's K-pop Hour and brought unmatched energy to One Motion Dance Crew. Whether she's behind the mic or performing on the dance floor, she delivers with a presence that's impossible to ignore. She first joined us for a deep dive into the world of possible sequels for K-pop Demon Hunters, then returned to break down the show Daria last week, and now she's back one last time as we're closing things out. Please join me in welcoming our final guest to the Storytelling Podcast. It's Allison.
Hello, I'm glad to be back. Thank you for having me again, Sebastian.
Well, it's good to have you back one more time before we close things out. So tell me, Allison, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we have an interesting topic, and it is about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Today we'll be diving into...
Well, not just the show, but the movie, unfortunately, and then, well, I guess we could talk about the spinoff, and then the Netflix show.
We got some good stuff to talk about.
It's mainly going to be talking about, well, Avatar, but through the fans, because they're the real winners here. So tell me, Allison, when you first got into Avatar, how was that experience for you?
I grew up on Avatar, actually. My dad put me on. He was the one who bought all the CDs for us, and he would play it whenever we were in the car, or whenever it was on the TV, we would just watch it.
Yeah.
So I have very vivid memories of growing up and watching Avatar. Some key moments that I have in my memories is the Mushroom Cloud episode, if you remember that one.
I remember. I don't really remember what happens in it. It's just that the Mushroom Cloud is, it's pretty evident for that one.
I think they drank cactus juice, something like that, because they were stranded in the desert, and then Sokka and Momo were acting weird.
Yeah,
it was funny. I loved that episode. And then another key moment. Do you remember those little dough buddies they had in the...
I want to say I think I do.
Yeah, I forgot where they were at, but it was one of those moments where you see food in a show and it's you want to eat it, right?
Yeah, I can name so many different projects like that. One of the ones that I can name is this little short film from Disney called Bao.
Yes.
Just seeing the little man as a dumpling, and then they had the bread thing with jelly in it. It's damn, I want to get myself some of that.
Yeah, I also loved Avatar growing up because it was so in tune with Asian culture, and it had great diversity shown throughout the show, and the rich history of all the avatars too. It really did inspire me because I didn't see that as much growing up. There wasn't as much Asian representation, and this was the show that did it.
This was a Western property too, which was surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of things could be pulled off like that, but they managed to do it. But again, this was during the golden age of television for kids.
Yeah, and they did it really well too. Like the whole story, the plot, the motives, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, for this show at least, for this original show, you had the moments where it's like, yeah, it's meant to be comedic, but then you had the darker and serious more moments, and having that perfect blend of like everything with the emotions in there throughout the entire show. I think that's what probably made it work and made it one of, if not the best TV show or Western animated show of all time.
Yeah, I agree. And when did this show come out? It was like
I want to say it was the early 2000s,
something
that's
like
all
that.
I know. All I know is it was before the train wreck that was the movie.
Yeah, well, the movie, we have a lot to talk about that. We have a lot of...
We'll get to it. But with this one, like, yeah, you can say the fans were eating good when this first came out.
Yeah.
They were eating real good with everything that happened.
Yeah.
You did have some sad moments here and there, like I think it was the Ice Princess, or was it the Water Princess?
The
one that
turned into the moon.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one was pretty sad.
Something that this one did do, it built up the Fire Lord in the early seasons, which is not something I could say for the movie because they got straight to the point on that, sadly.
Something I have been seeing a lot recently are like clips of the show, and it's like Agni Kai between Zuko and, oh gosh, what's the sister's name?
Katara?
Zuko and no. Zuko and, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. She's
Azula?
Azula, yeah. I've been seeing that quite recently a lot, and it's their battle, and then Katara has to interfere, and then I think she like chains Azula up with her waterbending skills. But oh my gosh, that battle was so good. I also loved their animation style. It was it really...
The way that I see it, it kind of looks like you took a comic, but then was like, hey, let's make this a 2D animated living comic.
Yeah, it wasn't like anything else for its time.
I would say that another win that you could say that like satisfyingly happened is a lot of shows took inspiration from this animation style for their stuff.
Oh, what shows?
To my knowledge, it was more the 2D type animated shows like Ben 10 and even stuff like Transformers animated. Just off the top of my head. Actually, I don't think that was Cartoon Network. That might have been a different platform. But hey, at least you had other people being inspired, like how we have that boom right now of 3D animation with the Spider-Verse films and how everyone is trying to do their own thing, I guess, with something like that.
That's true, yeah. The fans really won at the end, though, when Aang and Katara got together. When they finally got together.
You didn't think it would happen, but it did.
Oh, yeah. For me, though, low-key, I am a Zutara stan. I like Zuko and Katara together. They have really good chemistry. And even for the live-action Netflix show, I'm excited to see what they do with their dynamic.
I don't know what season they're on for the Netflix show.
It's about to be season 2.
Really?
So they have season 1 out. They haven't released season 2 yet. It's coming soon, though.
This year.
Yeah.
But anyways, the show had a very satisfying ending. So let's go talk about the movie now.
Yes.
Where to begin?
Right from the jump, you could tell that their special effects, like their effects, the visual effects, all of that is just, it's really not good.
Yeah.
And like the mispronunciation of the names, the butchering of
Ong.
Yeah, oh gosh. Who greenlighted that?
So I'll tell the story of what happened.
Okay.
So essentially how this movie got made is the Avatar show just ended. M. Night Shyamalan's kids were watching Avatar in the living room. He came down to sit with them, watched a total of 3 episodes, and then he was like, I want to make a movie of that, and I want to make a trilogy. So we almost got 2 of these things, or 2 more of these things. And so he went to Paramount Studios, who just happened to own Nickelodeon, and he's like, hey, I want to make an Avatar movie. And I don't know what happened, but there you just gave the thumbs up, and we're like, yeah, do it. I guess we're doing this, everybody. Sorry, Nickelodeon. We're making the movie. Nickelodeon was not in the production for this thing at all.
Oh my gosh.
I think what's it called? Some people have said that this is kind of racist of him, but he hired for each member of which different bender they were. He said, oh yeah, for the firebender, because I chose the main guy who's on that to be Indian. The entire tribe is now Indian.
Yeah.
For the rock people or the earth or whatever they were in that thing, they're Asian. The water people are white.
Yeah.
I don't And then Aang is just, oh, man.
Aang is Aang.
Man, why would you hire a first-time actor for the role of Aang? I've seen the kids. I've seen his entire like move set. It's like, yeah, this dude could fight in real life, but he's a first-time actor, and why does he look scared all the time? You know?
There were so many ways that the movie could have gone right, but they chose every wrong direction. They decided to just completely go off track, and I don't know if M. Night Shyamalan has seen the series, honestly.
Other than those 3 episodes that he watched.
Yeah, it was just...
In a way, I feel like this is like, or like this was his interpretation of it, and then you watch it and it's like, there's so much that's wrong with this thing. Like, why was this made? Even the fans, what's it called? They were fine when they saw like the photos and everything, and then when they saw the movie, they're like, don't watch it, just don't watch it, man. If they would have gotten his name right one time, I could have maybe have given this a pass, but that's a very light maybe.
I think he tried to make it his own thing.
Yeah.
Especially with Nickelodeon not being in the production. I think he wanted to be different. Like, this guy just wanted to follow his own path.
It doesn't help that they crammed the entire first season into one movie either. Because that first season, well, you can say there's a lot of episodes that can fly by. The stuff that's in them, it can be long, man.
Yeah. I did like the live action movie casting of Princess Yue though. She did pretty good on that, but other than that,
there was no change to that character at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no change to the Fire Lord's son either. He was like the best part of the movie. Him and I forgot the other character's name. I just don't want to talk about the movie anymore. And then we won after that with Korra, The Legend of Korra. This one I actually watched when it was airing. I didn't watch the original Avatar, but seeing it, well, I pretty much have the same opinion as everyone else who have like talked about the show. Season 1 is good. Season 2 is horrible. The rest of it is just like great. What would you say about Korra?
Korra, I don't think I watched it fully through, and I think it's because season 2, the hype kind of just fell down. But season 1, I think I remember watching it.
Amon was hunting all of the benders down.
Yeah. Also, there was like concepts leaning more towards, I wouldn't say horror, but a little bit more deathly concepts, like bloodbending. That was a thing in Korra, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember from Korra.
I mean, like, coming straight off the movie, this is a win for fans. Like, even season 2 is surprisingly a win. Like, comparing it to the movie, it's like we ended up winning with this thing.
Everything compared to the movie is just better.
Yeah.
And one thing that Avatar: The Last Airbender does is listen to the fans. The movie did not listen to the fans. They did not go off of what the fans said at all.
They didn't even put Avatar in the title. They just put The Last Airbender.
Yeah. Dude,
I blame James Cameron for that one.
How do you mess that up so bad? But yeah, they listen to the fans, and the fans get what they want, and the ending of the show, or the ending of the original show, was great.
Yeah.
Movie ending, not so great.
Movie ending was setting up for a sequel that didn't happen. We got Azula in the post-credit scene. We didn't get that. I didn't want to get that. No one wanted to get that. We just wanted to move on as a society.
We didn't even ask for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like Korra is like one of those examples where it's like, well, you kind of had to give a pass on this one, because it's like this was only really made just to like get the hype back into Avatar after the disaster train that we had gone through. I mean, I remember being hyped up for the movie, and I didn't even see it until way after it came out.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I want to say I was like in kindergarten when this film came out.
Oh.
The only reason I was really excited about it anyways was because I got the McDonald's toys out of it.
Do you remember the ending of Korra?
That one I don't, because I hadn't seen it, or I don't, what's it called? I don't think I saw the complete final season entirely.
Yeah.
I kind of dropped off after like mid-season 4. And then just like watched the show sporadically throughout the years. Tried watching it again on COVID, but I found too many shows on Netflix that I ended up watching instead.
Yeah. And did you watch the live-action Netflix show?
Like 3 episodes of the first season. Let's talk about the Netflix show now.
Yeah. The Netflix show, live-action,
Would you consider it safe? Or
safe in what way?
Like, they know what the fans want. They know what they have to do, but they're not willing to take risks, so they just have to make it safe, in quotation marks.
It's safe in the way that they follow the original show, but a lot of the fans were mad about this live action Netflix series because of the actors. And I think they were upset because I think the guy casted as Sokka, right? He lied about being indigenous. Also the thing with Katara and Aang, I think a lot of fans wanted their age gap to be smaller, or like they wanted them to like cast the appropriate ages for the show.
Something closer to what the original show was.
Yeah, the original show was, but they didn't. And so I think that's where they were kind of losing the fans a little bit, especially because they were hinting towards Zuko and Katara in the season, or in the series.
Yeah.
So we have to wait for season 2 to see how that dynamic will end up.
I mean, from the little test screenings that I have heard, they did say that season 2 is an improvement of season 1, but I have to see the entirety of... I can't really judge off of like the entire season 1 because I haven't seen the full thing. I've only seen 3 episodes. But what I can say is a win for that Netflix show is as the fans winning, you won with the visuals in that one. You definitely won, especially that one rock scene where the dude just like fires a bunch of rocks at, you know.
Yeah. No, they did their thing with the special effects.
At least Netflix knew where to put the money into this.
Yeah.
Not so much in the script though, but you know.
Yeah, the end of season 1 was pretty satisfying too. I mean, it just, like I said, it follows the same
formula as the original show.
Formula, yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about an actual win now. We have Avatar: The Last Airbender, or Aang: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
They put Aang right after Avatar. This one has yet to come out, but I find the situation kind of heartbreaking for everyone who worked on this film. This was meant to go to theaters. We would have gotten this in May, by the way. But they were like, no, let's just dump it onto Paramount Plus.
Oh, so they're not bringing it to theaters?
They weren't going to bring it to theaters, and the reason for it is like no one goes to see 2D animated films, and it's like we just had Demon Slayer last year. That's a 2D animated anime film, and it made $130 million at the box office. Imagine the Avatar fans showing up for this thing.
Yeah, the outcome would be huge.
And then some guy in Singapore leaked it. I did see it. It's an unfinished cut of the movie, though. I'm not going to say what happens in it, just for, to not spoil anything.
Yeah.
You'll find out in October when they put this on Paramount Plus. All I'm hoping is just give this maybe like a week in theaters. This one looks like it could be on the big screen, and it's visually impressive with what they were able to do with the animation.
A lot of good animators worked on the show. I know that they had someone from Spider-Verse working on this show, or not the show, the movie. Yeah, the movie. But yeah, it's a good team. But from what I saw, it gives the fans what they want, and it's a very, very good continuation story of what happens after
the show.
Yeah, after the show, after they end the war. Yeah.
In a way, or at least the way that I've seen it, it's like, yes, this is already better than Korra and the Netflix show. So I know where I'm probably gonna rank it, but I have to see it in its full entirety, not just this unedited version.
Yeah.
But what I can say is we won, Avatar fans. You guys won this one.
If we're ranking all these
projects,
what would be your first to last?
As of now, it's going to be the original series, the movie, then Korra, then the Netflix show, and then in the center of the earth is where we're going to be putting the movie.
The M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yes.
I agree with that, yeah.
If we were able to do what they used to do in like 40s, 50s, and 60s, where people could just like lose tapes of like movies just so they can be lost to time, can we please do that for this movie? It would greatly benefit.
Imagine if they sent out a tape of the M. Night Shyamalan movie out in space, and that's just like the
aliens
only,
finding it, being like, that
piece.
does it. We have to go take out whoever made this.
That'd be a good ending.
That would be the best ending for that movie. Just getting everything and just sending it out to someone else who is going to be horrified.
Yeah.
What's it called? We do have a little bit of time left for this, how to end a story satisfyingly. Let's talk about, let's go back to the beginning of your appearance from this podcast. Let's talk about how K-pop Demon Hunters had a satisfying ending.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Honestly, it's not satisfying enough, but it is satisfying.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of unanswered questions. like, is Gino alive? We already know that he is, but like,
Yeah, I mean,
we
thankfully,
have to see it.
what's it called? I don't know if you've heard, but right after that Oscar got won, they announced the sequel. It's coming out in 2029 officially.
Oh, good.
So they're working on it, thankfully. But just the ending to that film, the first film specifically, with the Battle of Guima, how would you say that is satisfying in itself? Just come together and finally ending it off.
How did that make me feel? Is Guima actually gone?
He went back to his realm, I want to say. So he's not entirely gone, but like they did defeat him.
Yeah.
At least they accomplished their mission of friendship.
Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, they accept Rumi now. That's good.
I mean, we could go into what we could have gotten for the ending of this film. Like, yeah, this is already satisfying. The music is obviously like the main selling point of this thing. What it sounds like is just like an acid trip, if anything, but like in the best way possible.
The movie looks like one too, honestly.
Yeah. We could have gotten like so much other stuff. Like apparently one of the scrap versions of what it sounds like, Genu was gonna join them in singing, and he was gonna help them defeat Guima, and then he was just gonna be like, all right, I'm infinity warring, dusting out of here.
Oh.
And it's like, I could see why they cut that, but then again, you're telling me he had lyrics in the song.
Yeah. I think that would have been a good ending if there wasn't a sequel.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they left a lot of
Unanswered things, just
Yes.
unanswered.
Yeah.
Are they gonna bring back Celine to be the killer of Rumi's mom, just like
I
how
think
in the
so.
deleted
Yeah,
stuff?
I think so for sure. They definitely need to dive into.
I mean, with them having
how-
a deleted scene of Rumi's dad, like loving Rumi as a baby, you could tell that this guy is probably the same thing as like Genu was.
Yeah.
What's it called? Let's just talk about the final scene of this movie. How I consider it to be satisfying is them just hanging out with the fans.
Yeah. It's a very light concept overall, but there are a lot of. It's a kid-friendly movie, but it's for everyone.
In a way,
And-
you could say that it's touching because of they chose not to go home and chose to hang out with fans who are just like crying whilst looking at them.
Because throughout the movie, they struggle with a lot. Like Rumi, she struggles with her own identity, and they all kind of struggle to find their place. And it deals with a lot of heavy topics that might not seem kid-friendly, but after all, it is a kids movie.
Yeah.
And so like I said, like it's a light concept
In the way
towards
that
the
like
end.
it's told, you can tell what it's telling you, but it could technically be for anyone,
Yeah.
including children. Although one last thing to say, the scrapped actual final scene was going to apparently be them walking back into the apartment or whatever the penthouse thing is with Sussy and Derpy Tiger. Can you imagine that? Like they're willingly like adopting these two.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we get that in like the intro to
We need
the
that,
second
yeah.
one. That I would say that's that and along with Avatar, like those both had satisfying endings where they were like satisfying enough to where it's like, yeah, I could be fine, and if this is where it ended, I wouldn't complain. You can't really complain about either of these two.
But I mean, it's good we're getting sequels too, because then
Yeah,
we get more content.
yeah, and hopefully we get Avatar: Aang the Last Airbender in
Yeah.
theaters.
The fans are getting fed.
Yeah. Anyways, that's gonna wrap up this segment, everyone. Thank you once again, Allison, for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me.
We're gonna wrap this up now, but before that,
Thank you for joining us on the 9th episode of the Storytelling Podcast on how to end a story satisfyingly here on Delta College. We are going to take a quick break, but we will be right back here on 93.5 KWDC.
Talking to your kids about the dangers of vaping can be hard. Getting them to listen to hot gossip is easy. So here's some drama you could share with your kid. Dude, did you hear about Cassie and Jake? No, but did you hear that vaping can cause irreversible lung damage and nicotine affects brain development? Nuh-uh. You don't need to gossip if you want to have an open conversation about vaping. So if you want to get tips on when and how to talk to your kids, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
well, everyone, that's going to be it for this podcast episode on the Storytelling Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on the Storytelling Podcast for how to end a story satisfyingly. I want to take a moment to give a huge thank you to Ian for joining me on this episode of the Storytelling Podcast and for being a part of the other 2 episodes that he had been in earlier this semester. I'd also like to thank Allison for coming back once again. She's been an incredible support to me since last semester on this podcast and has truly helped shape this podcast along the way. Both of you, thank you for everything you've contributed. It genuinely means more to me than I can even put into words. As we wrap up this final episode of the Storytelling Podcast, I just want to say thank you. The fact that you chose to spend your time listening truly means more than I can express. I hope today's conversations sparked new ideas, challenged the way you think about storytelling, and gave you something meaningful to carry into your own creative journey. Normally, this is where I'd say stay tuned for next time, but at the moment, we've reached the end of the Storytelling Podcast. And with that, I do have one last surprise for you all.
This is Christopher, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Ian, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Elton, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Jason, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Alex, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Josh, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Cheyenne, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
This is Allison, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast.
Keep creating, keep imagining, keep building, keep telling good stories. I'll catch you all later. This is Sebastian Oseguera, and this has been the Storytelling Podcast, Episode 9, How to End a Story Satisfyingly. Goodbye for now, everyone. The Storytelling Podcast has been a production of KWDC 93.5 LPFM, Delta College Radio. This program is made possible by listeners like you. Programming is produced by the students, staff, and faculty of San Joaquin Delta College's Digital Media Department and supported by the Delta College Department of Arts and Multimedia, the Career Technical Education and Workforce Development Office, and the State of California. Thank you for listening.